I'm Scott Schiff. We're here on behalf of the Fraternal Order of Police and the Columbus Firefighters Union. There are 2,400 members and 1,700 members respectively, all of whose identity has been affected through this cybersecurity breach. Our clients have been waiting over a month for the city to give them guidance and direction, and it's been nothing but conflicting findings, and there's just been a lot of circling of the wagons. So we've been retained to file a private class action suit and try to get to the bottom of what's happened, how much information has been taken, and how much of it has been used. With that, if you have any questions, we're happy to try to answer what we can other than specifics about the pending lawsuit. But generally, our concern goes to a lot of this highly sensitive information of all the public. The most sensitive records we want to keep protected are the records of our personal lives of our firefighters and policemen who are constantly in the trenches, in the belly of the beast in our city, protecting us from crime and harm and fire. And it's just very hard to fathom that there's been this magnitude of a breach. And so that's what we're here to figure out. And we've filed suit, and we're talking to experts, and we'll get to the bottom of this. We will get to the truth as to what happened in this cybersecurity attack for the city of Columbus and why they weren't better protected. And if we have any questions, we can open it up. This is Brian Steele and Steve Stein from FOP and the fire department. This is Zach Schiff, my son. Any questions we can answer, we're glad to try and accommodate you. Yes?
To you gentlemen, can you explain how many of your members have been impacted by having money actually taken from accounts? Like, and can you give me specifics? Obviously no names, but what has happened to your members?
I can say, or at least in terms of giving you empirical numbers, we had offered, even ahead of the city with their credit monitoring, the union had gone and invested in separate identity theft protection and credit monitoring services. We've had hundreds and hundreds of members reach out for those protections. And I know, I can't speak to the exact specifics. We've had dozens of members reach out directly to the Schiff law firm here, people who have reported being impacted. And so I can't speak to the specifics of whether that's how much money out, dark web information, personal information, credit pulls, etc. But I can tell you it's been hundreds of people feel strongly enough to reach out to get this service, and dozens of people have reached out to participate in this class suit.
It's the same. We've had everything from United Healthcare accounts that have been hacked open to Gmail accounts hacked open, Gmail accounts that officers only use solely for work purposes. We've had money taken out of accounts. It grows every day, so I don't have an exact number, but enough that we thought it was time to reach out for legal help.
Why file the second class action lawsuit since there has already been one filed?
Because, everybody's got a right to counsel of their choice. And we've been representing the police and the firemen for 40 years. We have an excellent relationship with them and the city, and we think there's hope that we can bridge an agreement of some sort with the city to try to make this right with our clients. Additionally, there's no limit as to the number of people who can file a class case. If there's multiple cases, the judge can decide who to consolidate the cases to and pick a lead counsel to prosecute this matter. I believe we'll be able to do that adequately, and probably stand to be the ones that will lead this class case for the victims.
The city offering credit monitoring, identity theft services, have your members used it? Is it helping? Is it peace of mind? Why going beyond what the city's offering?
I'll say we've had some that used it. Yeah, probably a few dozen have used it. Some have went on and got their own. I personally have monitoring outside the cities that I've had and I continue to use.
Have you heard of any protections in place for the undercover officers? We've heard a lot of our experts express a lot of concern. Do you know if anything's being done to protect their identities?
No, and I'm glad you asked that. That's one of the failures of the city right now. I'm the president of the police union, and not a single city official has came to me and assured me, told me that so I could tell our members. So that's part of the reason we're here today. It's been radio silent in terms of what's going on.
Have any of your members heard anything? I know the mayor sent out an email and there's been press conferences, but what have you personally heard from the city about this?
I can tell you, other than the couple of emails we've received with the general guidance, that's the extent of it. We're depending on a lot of you for the answers, and which is very frustrating. Because at the end of the day, I think our aim, no matter where this thing is resolved, is to get our firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, and police officers as well, should not have to be worrying about this in the back of their mind when they're making life and death decisions for our most vulnerable citizens in their moment of need. They don't need to be wondering, am I going to be able to close on my house while I'm gearing up and going into a house fire?
What about your retired members? Are they going to be included in this?
We have, I can just speak for the Firefighters Union, we have opened up for anybody that's retired in 2023 or 2024 access to our identity theft monitoring and credit monitoring services that we are paying for with union dues money. But I cannot speak to anybody else that's been retired previously, what they're going to be entitled to.
Yeah, we're committed to fighting for our retiree members, just the same as our active members.
We haven't seen a lawsuit. Restitution, penalties, what are you asking for? A specific number?
Generally, we don't have a specific number because we don't know the total number of plaintiffs that we're going to have at this juncture. And we don't know the gravity of the breach as to the general public. We know it's extremely deep when it comes to our firefighters, policemen, all our court records have been breached. Witnesses, names, identities, minors who've been victims of rapes, victims of sexual abuse cases who are often told to testify in private. All their testimony and identity has been exposed. It's chilling, the potential ramifications of this breach on our criminal justice system, our judicial system, our firemen and police officers. It's just too broad right now to even put a dollar figure on it. Frankly, it's not right now about the money. It's about somehow getting a stop to these to this information flow. We don't know if they're still breaching. We don't know if we don't know if it was an internal job, if it was an external job. We don't know where the fault came in, but we do know that the city is responsible for maintaining the privacy and security of the public records that should not readily be available, like Social Security numbers, dates of birth, bank accounts, witness statements, witnesses' addresses. It gets pretty deep.
I know you're upset because they didn't notify you, but is the biggest concern the fact that they had all this information and they didn't have the security in place to protect it?
Well, I think the biggest concern is that we rely on our elected officials to protect us on the streets from fire, crime, and our identities, and their identities are, it's a foregone conclusion that we're going to protect our protectors first. Our protectors have not been protected here.
Steve, if I may, I think one of the other challenges here too, when we talk about restoring trust and getting resolution here, is there is not a day that goes by where our folks, our police officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, are extracting that personal information from the people that call 911. And so I think the public deserves to know if they're giving their information to a police officer, an EMT, paramedic, that information is going to be safe. It's going to be HIPAA information, all these things. And I think it speaks to Scott's point. We don't know what the extent is. We need some concrete resolution. We're hopeful we can get there sooner rather than later. But at the end of the day, our chief aim is to give our folks and the public we're privileged to serve that peace of mind.
What has been your biggest concern, frustration about how the city has handled this whole situation?
I'll jump on that if I can. Whether this attack was preventable or not, history or time will tell, right? What we know is preventable is their lack of transparency. I think that's what bothers us the most. The FOP, the union, is requesting transparency. The community is requesting transparency. At this point, the city is either with us or against us. And if they're against us, the community will hold them accountable.
I have two data reaction questions for each of you, even if you can't speak to the specifics. Yesterday, I got a look at part of the Firehouse database, which I know is not used anymore, but it did have victims' information in there, including socials, including information for people who are now dead. What's your reaction to now seeing that database that isn't even being used anymore, kind of being in that leak? And then I can ask you specific to police.
Well, certainly, I think it speaks to the point we've already made. It takes a very difficult and dangerous job or sets of jobs and makes them that much more difficult and dangerous. And so, again, our aim is it's a privilege to serve the citizens. There's trust that has to be there, whether it's the decisions we're making or our ability to protect their information. So that's going to make it tougher for our arson investigators to do their job now and in the future. And so again, it speaks to we're not here to point out problems. We're here to find a solution and get there as quickly as possible.
And for the crime matrix database that we're expecting to see, that was one of the ones that was impacted. Is there anything that you think is being done to protect undercover officers' information who might come out, or any information that might come out that was not supposed to, that might be in that crime matrix?
There's no information I have now that specifically what's being done to protect them. And again, it's not just the undercover officers, it's also the informants. We have undercover informants that put their lives just as a risk as the officers. And it's incumbent of us to protect that information. And no matter what is medical information, crime information, we have to safeguard that. And if this was, again, something preventable, or if this was human error that caused this, we expect the city to identify that individual or that unit of individuals and hold them accountable.
And this lawsuit would extend to citizens, or is this just for law enforcement?
No, we're open for business for any citizen that feels that their personal identity information, et cetera, has been leaked without their consent. And yeah, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
But this suit is specifically just for FOP and firefighters. Do you plan to expand beyond that?
No, we are, this suit is for FOP and firefighters, but we are, within our suit, able to, and we do have people that have contacted us that will be represented under the purview of this lawsuit.
You guys have filed it, or you're going to file it?
It was filed yesterday. This morning?
It was effectively filed this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you guys share a copy of it, because we
Yeah,
find
I
it
looked, I couldn't
searching
find
this
it.
morning.
Sure.
It's amazing how many people this impacts.
Yeah.
Thousands, including probably every one of you in the room who ever came to a city building and scanned your ID. So we're all in this together, certainly.
Yeah, they estimate about 500,000 so far.
So in your relief, as we talk about how basically anyone who lives, works, plays in the city of Columbus in the last I don't know how many years has been impacted, what kind of relief outside of monetary are you looking at? Are you looking to make sure the city does some kind of safeguarding or gets rid of information they don't need to stockpile? Is there anything outside of that monetary value that you may look to get as relief?
Yeah, I think our suit speaks to that rather than me elaborating on that. The main relief we want now is direction for our firefighters and our police officers as to how safe they are. Does the city know more information than we're getting? So the only way to sometimes get things done when you can't do it by phone calls is unfortunately to file a lawsuit. And through the discovery process, we can get to the bottom of what's happened and what information is out there. Our number one objective right now is to stop the leaked information, to try to identify the most sensitive breaches that are out there and protect those people first, particularly our law enforcement and firefighters.
Did you reach out to the city? Did you reach out to the city before on behalf of the two unions saying we're planning to do this? Can we sit down at the table?
No, we were not at that point representing the unions or the particular individuals. They were in contact with us, the union heads and many of the officers, and we asked them to try to work through the city first. The city's in charge, they're in control of this. It's on their watch, as the mayor said the other night. It's on his watch. And it got to a point where there was just insufficient information being shared, so we had to be proactive, and that's why we're here. And that's why we're open for business, to try to find out what happened.
So
We don't know a lot now, but we'll know a lot soon.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So I was going to ask you two gentlemen, do you kind of feel like how the city has handled the situation thus far, it kind of forced your hands to file a lawsuit to get the information? Otherwise, maybe they wouldn't make it public?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a unique spot, right? In that we both, we talk routinely between our organizations. This is not a simple grievance over a jurisdictional work dispute. This is obviously beyond the scope of a collective bargaining agreement issue. It's incumbent upon us as folks that represent our public safety forces and their well-being and their families' well-being to connect them with resources. And so that's really what was the genesis of, all right, we've done what we think we're really able to do to the greatest extent possible. And really at this point it was up to us and incumbent upon us to connect our members with what we believe is some of the best resources to help get a remedy to, really get our people and the public that we serve peace of mind to know that we're going to have resources to protect our personal information now and in the future.
So what happens next? You file, and we know that there's another suit out there, then you come together with the same judge, have a hearing and make determinations. What happens from there if you work together, or you're in charge or they're in charge?
There will be some legal discussions with the presiding judge to determine how they want to coordinate the discovery process, and that's to be determined by the court.
We know the investigation on the city side, they say it's going to take months, and obviously the legal process can take a while too. For people who are really concerned, you know, our law enforcement officials who are really concerned with their information right now, kind of what would you say to them as they wait for answers?
I would tell my brothers and sisters what we did, would take some proactive steps. Monitor your credit, freeze your credit if you can, change your bank account numbers, just some of the best practices. Take proactive steps instead of just waiting. The minute this happened, we did not know how many were affected. I told my members, assume every single one of you are affected, and that's what you can control.
How soon after this happened did your members start hearing their bank accounts may have been compromised, they were getting texts, they were, you know, being victimized?
It seemed like it was maybe about 3 weeks ago. My timeline was a little bit off, but it was very rapid. Once that first one happened, and we thought, okay, this happens every now and then the second member, a couple hours later, you thought maybe this is a coincidence. Then within a couple days, it was just in succession, multiple.
And it's continuing?
Yes.
I was told hours before one of your stations broke the story about police officers having their bank accounts drained in a text message from a top official within the city that said, hey, if you've heard of any money missing from police officers' bank accounts, that's just not true. 2 hours later, you're reporting the facts. That told me right then and there we have a really big problem, and we don't know the scope and the extent of it, and that's really why we're counting on our partners here in council to wrap our arms around the scope and the extent of this.
There is half, or allegedly half of the data posted on the dark web, but there's a whole other half that isn't on there that may have been sold. It may not exist, but it's really the city wants through their investigation to determine what that was. Do you think this lawsuit will help get those answers faster, or do you think it is going to be a waiting game?
I think it will help get these answers faster. I think we will probably try to set up a meeting with the city as soon as possible to try to see if there's some preventative measures that can be taken by both the union heads who care deeply about their membership, and hopefully we can immediately take some remedial measures to prevent any future damage. The past is the past. We'll have to deal with that individually and later.